What's up everyone, it's Endemic, and like many of you out there, you've likely been hearing about this boycott surrounding the #1 selling beer in America, Bud Light. Or I should say, used to be the #1 selling beer. And I'm going to be upfront about this right away. Due to the annoyingly fragile nature of YouTube, I'll refrain from using a lot of imagery about Bud Light in this video. I'll also be referring to the influencer in question as the influencer because YouTube unfortunately hates it when you speak against what's considered politically correct. But you know who this influencer is likely, I'm sure. So if you don't mind, I'll just be using game footage as the background while I speak because YouTube and the broader powers that be are kind of a hellscape when it comes to these things. You understand, I know, but this Bud Light situation, as well as other topics I'll cover in this video, really goes to show the hypocrisy of the state of the world today and why these things need to be called out. When most people think of who drinks Bud Light, the answer is likely a blue-collar worker class individual. Someone who enjoys a beer after a day's hard work and likes to unwind and relax and enjoy the company of those around them. According to Anheuser-Busch, this stereotype of what Bud Light's clientele is described as was considered outdated, as it was referred to as fratty, meaning Bud Light's higher-ups wanted to shed the frat boy working class image. So in their infinite wisdom, they decided to veer off and sponsor an influencer who has been documenting their time as a woman when they were born a man. As you can expect, this partnership caused probably one of the largest SHIT storms in a long time, with Anheuser-Busch losing over $6 billion in market value and many restaurants and distributors refusing to sell the product or being stuck with surplus that no one wants to touch. The reason why these things happen are closely tied to what I've been saying on this channel for a while now, which is that for one, companies need to know their audience, and two, it's imperative to never attack or belittle your consumer base. If I decided tomorrow to switch this channel from a commentary style to a full-blown makeup channel, it would likely piss off many of you. And it would anger many of you even more if I then antagonized you and said you were bigoted for not being okay with my sudden shift to beauty and makeup, when I was known for commentary. This is basically what's happening to Bud Light right now and many other companies like Disney, for example. These corporate entities are learning the harsh way to not piss off their consumer base, especially when these controversies are designed to virtue signal to woke identity politics. Anheuser-Busch and companies like Disney are currently being torn to shreds by the very people who supported them, when in reality these companies and their products could easily be thriving had they not decided to throw their weight behind political views.
We're sorry.
Whether the Bud Light controversy leads to an eventual bankruptcy of the parent company is very unlikely, of course. And maybe this entire situation will blow over in less than a month as people return to drinking Bud products. But the fact of the matter is that these companies are hypocritical and only push these political messages for reasons like ESG and getting patted on the back by others who push similar messages. This, of course, isn't the first time this sort of thing has happened, but what we're seeing with Bud Light is endemic to a broader culture war at hand. In my previous video, I spoke about Netflix's Cleopatra and why changing her ethnicity and pushing an identity political message with that show was Netflix's way of rewriting history. For some, it may seem like no big deal, but for others, especially those of Macedonian, Greek, or Egyptian descent, that change was considered crossing the line and was deemed racist. The problem here is that these companies do not care about their own histories or the values that matter to ordinary people in this modern age. Nothing is sacred from being bastardized or contorted in order to push the latest politically correct message, even if that means rewriting core values or sometimes actual history and erasing the brave souls who risked their lives for freedom. A great example of this would be the game Battlefield 5 that crashed and burned, not only because the game just ran like ass, but because it pushed identity politics, and went as far as to rewrite actual historical facts in the name of woke identity politics. During one of Battlefield 5's campaigns, which is titled Nordlys, you play as a young Norwegian girl in Norway during the winter of 1943, when Germany was occupying the region amidst World War II. In this particular campaign mission, you play as Solveig Fira Bjornstad, who wages a one-woman guerrilla war against the German resistance in order to save her mother and destroy a German water plant. While on the surface this particular campaign might seem like nothing but nonsense, when looked at deeper, it's clear that Electronic Arts and DICE didn't just look to bend the knee to woke identity politics, but wanted to rewrite the actual history of an important event in order to push a message to appease activists. This entire campaign sequence is based on the Norwegian heavy water sabotage event, where a group of Norwegian commandos scaled the snowy cliffs of their home country in order to infiltrate a German-controlled heavy water plant and stop Hitler and his forces from developing nuclear bombs. The operation was named Gunnerside and was led by Joachim Ronenberg, who along with his group of Norwegian saboteurs dived out of a plane in the darkness of night, with all of these brave men knowing that this mission was likely going to be their end. These brave men each carried cyanide pills in case of capture and gambled their own futures to stop the Germans from gaining super weapons that could have leveled civilization. The mission went awry and the saboteurs landed miles away from their destination, and it took the group 5 days to travel by foot to get to where they needed to be, all while evading German occupation in the area. Eventually, the group climbed a gorge, stealthed into the factory via a railway line, and using their wire cutters, the group was able to enter the plant undetected. The Norwegian soldiers were able to enter the facility and plant their charges, which they successfully detonated and put an end to Germany's ability to develop nuclear weapons. The daring escape resulted in the group having to ski over 200 miles through the region as German forces chased the saboteurs amidst the madness. The plan had worked, and their leader, Joachim Ronenberg, said the skiing he did as he evaded gunfire and destruction was the best skiing weekend he ever had. With the heavy water plant out of commission, the American forces were able to send in bombers and wipe out the facility completely, leading to Operation Gunnerside being one of the most important and celebrated moments of Norwegian military history. Joachim Ronenberg lived to be the last surviving member of the group that saved millions of lives. He passed away in 2018 at the age of 99 and even had a statue created to commemorate his bravery. What DICE and EA did was take this story about brave young men who threw themselves into the jaws of darkness and gender swapped and replaced them with a young teenage girl and her mother. This controversy understandably pissed off Norwegian Battlefield players, as the developers took an important moment in Norway's history and downplayed it while also gender swapping it in order to rewrite history and push identity politics.
Sorry.
The reason why I've spent so long talking about Battlefield 5 of all things in a video centered around Bud Light cans and Cleopatra Netflix drama is that these companies, regardless of their industry, whether it's alcohol, entertainment, or video games, are willing to transform and rewrite the core values of something to fit their own narratives. The hypocrisy and the blatant disregard for history and core values is fundamentally at the heart of what this woke culture war is about. People like Bud Light's VP of Marketing, Alyssa Heinerscheid, are an evident example of woke yes-men who don't seek to enrich the histories or brands they represent. They only see these things, whether they're best-selling beers or blatant rewrites of bravery, as things that must be changed to fit narratives. They want to replace reality with fiction and replace core identities in order to offer inclusivity while scoring brownie points and pushing their ESG scores. You even have actors like Luke Skywalker himself, who recently hosted a summit where Mark Hamill talked to Ukrainian soldiers in order to show the world that he's anti-Russian and politically correct. While this may seem all well and good, when looking past this, fans quickly realized that many of the Ukrainians Mark Hamill was hosting were flying fascist flags. And some of these soldiers Hamill was talking to blatantly had Nazi flags proudly displayed on them. This, of course, is the latest example of tone-deaf virtue signaling, and fans were quick to roast Mark Hamill for trying to score social justice points by featuring literal real-life Nazis.
Oh no! What happened? Oh no, how terrible! That's just awful. How terrible. Oh no.
One Jewish user even said, "Hey Mark, I'm a big fan of yours and it's really terrifying to see you not acknowledging the very obvious flag in this video. I understand if you didn't recognize it, I know lots of people might not have, but it's been pointed out to you a lot and our silence is really painful." To which Mark Hamill said, "I have no idea what that flag signifies. My support is simply for Ukraine over the Russian invasion, period."
We're sorry.
The symbol in the Ukrainian soldier's background is called the Black Sun, which is associated with neo-Nazi groups. The Black Sun insignia is synonymous with the swastika, so the fact Mark Hamill saw that and smiled ear to ear while talking to the soldiers is both hilarious and as tone-deaf as it gets. We really just saw the guy who played Luke Skywalker, one of the most famous rebels in entertainment who fought against space Nazis and blew up their Death Star, talking to real-life ones in public. You simply cannot make this up, folks, but this is the hypocrisy of the world today. Nothing matters more than ensuring that the message is being pushed at all times, even if it means completely sacrificing your core values or talking to literal Nazis in order to seem politically correct. The hypocrisy of the world is just delicious, isn't it? This is why you should never attack your audience and why companies need to understand that if you're willing to sacrifice the core values of your products, you should be equally ready to lose the consumer base that seeks those very same values in the things they buy. I mean, you just need to listen to what Bud Light's VP said recently too, as it proves she clearly lost the plot well before everything went to ruin. Bud Light's VP had this to say, and I quote, "I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light, and it was this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time, and if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. We strive to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. To evolve and elevate means to incorporate inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. Representation is sort of at the heart of evolution. You have got to see people who reflect you in the work. We had this hangover. I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of fratty, kind of out-of-touch humor, and it was really important that we had another approach." End quote. So it's no surprise that this change from blue-collar American drinkers to woke identity politics has led to Anheuser-Busch losing billions in market value. Alyssa Heinerscheid didn't see the strengths of what made the brand so iconic, but instead only saw the flaws in how by changing it, she could mold it to fit her narrative. The unfortunate reality is that people like Heinerscheid and the executives of Anheuser-Busch will likely be fine regardless of the outcome. After all, many companies have what's called golden parachutes for their executives in case things go belly up. So even if Bud Light's parent company were to go bankrupt, the people who ruined the brand would leave with their pockets full. The sad reality is that pushing wokeness usually only hurts the middlemen and the workers instead. This rejection of Bud Light will mostly hurt the people who don't get to make the decisions, but instead the honest, good-working men and women who stock the shelves and physically deliver products to store shelves, as well as the restaurant owners and venues who bought thousands of dollars in product and were understandably unaware of the cultural storm. And by the time they caught wind of it, it was too late, and now they were stuck with product that no one wants and thousands spent. That's one of the things that irks me the most about this, is that I know for a fact there's workers who are living paycheck to paycheck that are suffering because of this. It's the same way with game developers at DICE and Battlefield 5. These decisions aren't decided by the coders or art team, but by project leads and managers. And yet when sales drop and cuts need to be made, it's almost always going to be the people who didn't choose the moronic direction that get the axe. And it's not fair, but then again, life isn't either. But that's the hard reality of these things. Ultimately, whether Busch goes out of business or people largely forget about this controversy, the reality is that in the short and long term, it won't affect the morons making the decisions. And it sickens me knowing that it's ordinary working class people who will have to pay the price for the stupidity of gender-pushing woke idiots like Bud Light's VP and so on. Also, during all of this controversy, Anheuser-Busch's CEO finally came out of hiding and decided to say something. The open letter said, and I quote, "As the CEO of a company founded in America's heartland more than 165 years ago, I am responsible for ensuring every consumer feels proud of the beer we brew. We are honored to be part of the fabric of this country. Anheuser-Busch employs more than 18,000 people and our independent distributors employ an additional 47,000 valued colleagues. We have thousands of partners, millions of fans, and a proud history supporting our communities, military, fire responders, sports fans, and hardworking Americans everywhere. We never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. We are in the business of bringing people together over a beer. My time serving this country taught me the importance of accountability and the values upon which America was founded. Freedom, hard work, and respect for one another. As CEO of Anheuser-Busch, I am focused on building and protecting our remarkable history and heritage. I care deeply about this country, this company, our brands, and our partners. I spend much of my time traveling across America, listening to and learning from our customers, distributors, and others. Moving forward, I will continue to work tirelessly to bring great beers to consumers across our nation." End quote. What's funny is that the company is trying to backtrack the backlash by even releasing an ad focused on pro-American values, but unfortunately, so far anyway, people aren't budging. Simply put, these companies knew they were in the wrong, and only after being torn to shreds by their customers are they seeing the errors of their ways. I do truly believe the controversy surrounding Bud Light is a fantastic wake-up call to the companies out there that virtue signaling gets you nowhere. It won't get you in the good graces of anyone, and all you do by politically aligning your product is telling everyone who opposes that you're against them. Things like beer and hamburgers should never pick a side in a culture war. But thankfully these morons are learning the hard way in the only language they understand, which is by losing money and stock. What's also funny is that no one seems to be taking Bush's sort of half-assed apology as truth, with many people, especially on Twitter, saying they're only doing this because of the backlash. Even country singer Riley Green changed the lyrics of one of his hit songs because of Bud Light's political stance. Originally, the song "I Wish Grandpas Never Died," the song's lyrics would say, "And coolers never run out of cold Bud Light." But it's been changed now to "And coolers never run out of cold Coors Light." And because of this controversy, Coors Light sales have increased by 10%. And if Coors decides to push woke ideology, oh boy, well, I guess we'll see. Whether you buy Bud Light, use Netflix, or play video games, I totally understand that sometimes you want to just live in blissful ignorance. But the reality is, in today's world, things are so messed up that it's up to ordinary individuals like myself to call it out, otherwise nothing happens. You want my advice? Support what you love, but don't turn a blind eye to these companies. Vote with your wallet, and if you decide to drop Bud Light, I think that totally makes sense. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you also for 100,000 subscribers, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this. I'll keep fighting, and I'll see you in the next one.
Sorry.